Welcome, Miri, to our podcast, Debate Tomorrow. Very excited to have this conversation with you because AI, ethics, governance, they're very prevalent topics. So I'd like to welcome you firstly on.
Thank you.
Can we start by getting you to give us an introduction to your organisation, the one that you founded and CEO of Sidot, and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, Sidot is an AI governance company. When we started, actually, the whole term didn't exist. So I founded Sidot 2018. So it's been 5.5 years now. We're really focused on helping companies and governments operationalize responsible AI and AI risk management in their everyday practices. So we're building SaaS platform for doing AI governance in practice, helping AI product teams, AI business teams to do AI risk management and governance on their daily work.
Yeah, fantastic. So for people who don't really know this space, what's the easiest way to explain what AI governance actually is?
I think it nails down to risk management. So now when we deploy AI and all these amazing new big large language models and other foundation models, there is a new space of or new types of risks that emerge with these technologies. We have been hearing discussions about copyrights related challenges or discrimination bias related problems, things like that. So AI governance is an enterprise process that really focuses on managing those risks. So identifying risks and then also finding good ways to mitigate those so that we can make sure that the AI that we deploy and use is safe and in line with regulations and ethical policies.
Fantastic. So I started my first business, InfoReady, and it was based on information governance, right? And I always say to people that was the first incarnation of AI governance to some extent because it was data related. So information bias, AI bias. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I always found that fascinating to explain to people what that actually meant.
Well, you see AI bias when you ask one of the vision models, for example, to produce pictures of people in like leader position or doctors or nurses and so forth. So bias comes into picture. It presents the pictures that has been present in the data that it has been trained on. It's not necessarily the kind of representation of people in these professions that we would like to see or see in practice, but it's really providing results that it learns from the training data. And we all know that the training data that AI has been trained on, it doesn't represent our society in a very good manner. So yeah, AI bias is really related to that, how well the AI actually represents the reality or the.
So if we feed the AI engine the data that we wanted to give the answer of to some extent, or it's a bias set, it'll give you the answers that you're kind of preparing it with, rather than kind of these large language models that are full of a lot of different public codes. Someone was mentioning to us earlier today the best way to get around sort of ethical concerns within AI was to just only ever use public language models, large language models. I mean, I don't know if you've got a comment on that, but I found that quite interesting to say, well, he said small language models for private use, large language models should be public use. And I was a bit bamboozled by that. I didn't quite understand it, to be honest.
I don't, that's probably, I wouldn't guide relying on that solution on AI risk. And in general, the more I work in this area, the broader I look at AI risk. So it's definitely not about bias only. It's a variety of different kinds of risks that emerge when we take into use AI in different contexts. You really need to look at the use case that you're interested of and what are relevant risks in that context. Sometimes it's bias, sometimes it's terms related challenges, legal challenges on the terms that the providers are setting, and and yeah, everything between. So yeah, it's a broad area of risks that we should be able to look and digest.
Fantastic. So I might go back a step. So just really interested in what motivated you to focus on AI governance and ethics as a business. And I know it's really important, but how did you get into it?
It was, I was actually working in the financial sector before starting my own business. I was in largest financial services company in Finland. I went there to operationalize AI strategy. So there was a new strategy in the company, and my role was to basically take AI into use in all business areas of the company. I had worked a couple of weeks in the company, and then my boss came to talk to me and said that, okay, there's this GDPR coming. So in two years, we need to be in compliance with GDPR. So why don't you take that on your table as well? So I kind of by accident got this responsibility not only to drive AI, but also do that in compliance with the world's strictest data protection regulation. So I started to sort of experiment in my own work in large bank of how to really look at the innovation and then compliance at the same time. And during those couple of years, the whole responsible AI ethics as a discipline started to emerge. So we saw a lot of cases. Cambridge Analytica was probably the biggest case, and there started to be also, actually in Finland, there was the first discriminating credit algorithm in the financial sector during those years. So it started to emerge, and I had an amazing opportunity at that time to start to really experiment hands-on in my work of what is it to use AI responsibly? How do we tackle with these challenges? And I got really excited about the challenge of operationalizing these topics, and it became very clear for me that this is actually something that will also be regulated. It's not something that is up to whether a company is interested on AI ethics or doing business responsibly. It's something that will be regulated because the influence of AI is growing so hugely. So yeah, with that hands-on experience through my own work, and then seeing the importance of this, finding good ways to operationalize responsible AI motivated me to start my own company.
And you've gone beyond that as well. I think I read somewhere you've done a certification program, so the IEEE certification program.
Over the when we started SciDot, I of course started to connect with different people. It was actually this whole responsible AI as a discipline and domain was really small. So world was extremely small in that area. Basically, when you dived into the topic, then very soon you know everyone in the world who is really focusing on this area or close. So I connected with different people on these topics, and then I came across with some people from IEEE, one of the biggest standardization organizations in the world, and they were really thinking of putting together this certification program for AI ethics specifically. So it was very in line with what we have started to build with SciDot. So got involved in sharing that, and it eventually then led to one of the first certification programs for responsible AI, ethical AI, a domain where there are a lot of players nowadays.
So probably leads me to my next question. The asking the why part is probably obvious, but why do you believe AI ethics is so important into organizations today?
For me, it was realization that actually what we do, it's not only POCs or proof of concepts or pilots. When we put these systems in production, we're actually influencing our society. So it comes from the realization that the impact of AI, the different applications we're putting out there, they are influencing people's lives. So with that impact, influence, there comes responsibility. And I hope everyone starts to realize that as well. And that basically then leads to, okay, we should not only look at the opportunities, but we should also see what other impacts our work may have, and how can we help mitigate harmful impacts.
So tying the last kind of two questions together, so GDPR, I always pronounce that wrong. How has that influenced sort of the AI ethics side of and governance practices in Europe for you?
Obviously, like GDPR has had huge impact in AI and all data work in Europe and even beyond Europe. That's kind of maybe from enterprise perspective, GDPR pushed everyone to put in place some practices for data protection side. A lot of those practices can now be sort of transformed into handling responsible AI topics broader than privacy. I think it was really influential in enforcing companies to actually have some kind of processes, people to recognize compliance as an action that they need to take care of and put in place. For example, privacy impact assessment process. So many companies are now sort of repurposing or extending those processes into handling AI-related risks as well.
And does that, I mean, the European Commission, I don't know if you could discuss this, has just recently kind of put an AI regulation proposal in place. How's that going to impact some of the businesses as well?
Yeah, and it's not only a proposal anymore. Actually, I think it will be, now the expectation is that it's going to be published tomorrow in the official journal of European Union, and that means it's official then. So it's been really a long journey, several years, and we've been following that pretty closely, and that is kind of a game changer. Not only Europe, but it already influences other regions as well, as that's definitely the most comprehensive AI regulation. It's cross-sectoral regulation, really focused on establishing good governance practices for tackling AI-related risks, specifically risks related to people's health, safety, and fundamental rights.
Yeah, okay. Do you think that it will be something that gets adopted in other regions as well pretty quickly?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does impact. We are even already hearing in different regions regulatory proposals that have even the same name, so AI Act of their area. So like GDPR has influenced also data protection regulations around the world, I'm sure that AI Act also has that impact. And what we've been seeing when we talk with companies who are looking for ways to implement AI governance, they are definitely also outside Europe looking at EU's AI Act as the standard that they use for understanding what's coming in regulation and getting that golden standard of what does good look like from a regulator's perspective.
And will it be a lot of work for organizations to comply with that act?
So AI Act is really a risk-based regulation. The target has been really to focus on high-risk system or governing, regulating systems that pose high risk for health, safety, and fundamental rights of people. So it introduces really this risk-based classification. There are some systems that will be completely prohibited in the EU market, but the whole mainstream of the regulation is focused on so-called high-risk AI systems, and those will get a lot of requirements. So you need to basically put in place. Those are not forbidden. You can provide and use high-risk AI systems, but you need to have a proper governance for risk management. You need to do data governance, transparency requirements, and so forth. So it enforces good governance for those high-risk AI systems to make sure that the risks are really mitigated in a proper manner. Then it also looks at the supply chain perspective. So now, especially in the Gen AI boom that we are in, a lot of, or basically almost every company is relying on third-party models, third-party products on AI. So it really focuses also on setting requirements from the supply chain perspective, so that providers of these general purpose AI models that can be deployed to many different areas, they need to provide more transparency so that the downstream users of those models and systems are able to do good governance themselves. So really, that's something quite unique, and I think very valuable for anyone everywhere around the world who is using these models, because at the moment the situation is that there is too little information on what data these have been trained on and so forth. So
yeah, very good. And you mentioned transparency a few times, and I'm just thinking through that, like transparency is probably one of the key principles behind the governance and the ethics as well. So how can organizations ensure they have transparency within their processes?
Yeah, transparency was actually the number one principle that we were looking into, or really focused on when we started SciDot and helping companies to put in place that transparency. So on that end, we've been, for example, working with government organizations who have created public AI registers, public websites where they list their different AI systems, AI applications, and sort trust with the citizens by providing more visibility into how we're using AI and how does this AI work. Also ways to provide feedback. So that's one example. What we have learned is that there is no one recipe for transparency. It's always really dependent on the audience. So first of all, you should understand to whom are you providing transparency? Who needs more information from you? Is it enterprise to whom your company is selling AI-based products, and what do they need to know? Or is it citizens or consumers? And then that will really influence on what is good transparency, what is meaningful transparency for them. Because for consumers, citizens, you don't want to overwhelm them with information that they are really not interested in or capable to process some very technical details, for example. So know your audience and then provide information that is meaningful for that group.
Is too much transparency a risk in some instances, not just from a misunderstanding perspective, but a misuse perspective? Is that possible?
Yeah, of course, there are types of systems that are related to cybersecurity and things that you can't expose publicly, because it might then basically provide too much information for people who want to misuse your system. So that is also one important consideration. We never encourage companies or governments that okay, you need to put out everything that you do. You need to really have consideration, and really this is one of the important considerations on what you should put out there and what should be kept inside the company.
Yeah, great. Accountability would be another really important principle. So how can organizations ensure they have the right accountability behind their AI systems and some checklists or whatever they need to have in place?
Accountability is really a term that a lot of people have different interpretations of that. I think in its simplest form, it's really taking responsibility about the AI and the impacts, both the positive and the negative impacts. Practically, it should start by that you have an owner for the systems. You have a person who really takes care of it, and of course the governance related things, but also whatever the outcomes are. The part that we are often missing in the discussion about accountability is that okay, if and when the harm happens, so what happens then? So how do you what kind of remedies you provide and enable to tackle with that situation? And in the context of generative AI, we know that it's definitely not perfect, or AI in general is not perfect. So more attention should be paid into how do we tackle the situation when AI does wrong decisions, or it leads to harming people's or companies' lives, and what happens then?
It's interesting because feeding on from that, I think we've got things like digital ID and credentials, right? So they're a big thing. Like now, I probably don't carry a wallet with me anymore because everything is digital on my phone, but it's stored somewhere. So how does that contribute to data privacy issues and concerns and governance that's required to make sure that that doesn't become a problem from a cybersecurity perspective?
Yeah, I guess this whole identity verification is in chains right now, because generative AI is really challenging that area. On one hand, it's more important than ever, because really, as consumers, even we are facing deep fakes, and it's like, growingly difficult to distinguish what is real, what is truth, and what is not. So digital identities and identity verification really plays a role there. But definitely also deep fakes are challenging the ways we're doing that. So expecting a lot of development in that area.
Yeah, fantastic. And you mentioned interdisciplinary collaboration for different fields, right? So like privacy law contributes to ethical AI practices, etc. How do you think some of that plays out? And can you give a bit more of an explanation on that?
Yeah, what we are seeing is that often there is actually a little bit tension in companies between the AI teams, business teams who are really focused on taking into use AI or building these systems, and then legal teams who are more concerned about the risks and looking at the current and coming regulations. I find it super fascinating to find ways how do these different disciplines come together and really collaborate effectively. This is actually related to AI bias as well, and one very good means to practically manage or mitigate, try to avoid biases, is that make sure that your teams building AI are diverse. So that way you just expand your perspectives, visibility into from your own narrow perspective, and that way are more equipped to see the impacts more broadly. So yeah, from different perspective, I think it's really a best practice to make sure that there are different perspectives involved in building AI and then also in governing it.
Do you have any good examples of organizations that have done that well, or how they've managed that multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approaches to it?
Yeah, I wish companies would talk more about these topics. I think some big technology companies, they have started to report the diversity of their personnel in general, and sometimes even on the level of AI teams, how how they are in terms of gender, age distribution, different educational backgrounds and so forth. That's maybe one way to bring visibility over there. But my hands-on experience working with different companies, enterprises, and also governments is really practical learnings of that. Looking at AI risks, they are so different kinds of that you really need. It's really hard to find kind of a person who is able to see broadly enough to be able to cover all the different perspectives alone. So, and teamwork is nicer as well.
It is. Teamwork makes the dream work. So it makes it a lot better. What are some of the key challenges you see from an AI ethics perspective over the coming years?
Looking at this year, I think one of the biggest challenges is that what does good look like is not clear. So there is a lot of realization in companies that, okay, this is important topic. We really want to use AI responsibly. But then what does it mean? Actually, we've been seeing over the past few years, that there's been so much work on ethical principles for AI. A lot of companies and different organizations have published these kind of documents. The sad truth is that almost never it has led to anything more than just like publishing that paper. So that's really the challenge now, that because there hasn't been regulations in this area, so it's been basically up to companies themselves to figure out what does the good look like. And yeah, I basically observing this space for a few years now. I was really a strong proponent of self-regulation and believe that companies can solve these problems by themselves. I've turned into seeing that we need regulation to provide that good model, or like what does good look like, answer to that one. So that's maybe the biggest challenge at the moment in this area. Skills also, it's a learning process to start to see beyond your immediate target and what you're optimizing. So learning to look more broadly. Also, this whole third-party dependency is causing a lot of new challenges over the next few years. Right now, this year even. So your partners, your suppliers' problems are your problems. So realizing that and being able to tackle with those.
From a governance perspective of this, I think when we talked about the European Commission, AI is borderless, right? To some extent, it traverses the entire globe in nanoseconds, right? Where should governance sit? Like who should be responsible? How do we globally get governance in place? I'm just trying to think where the best place for it to belong. Yeah.
Like in enterprise setting, you mean?
Yeah, maybe the enterprise settings. Yeah. There's also the government settings.
Yeah. I personally think that the responsibility for governance needs to be there, where who are owning the systems, who are building the products. They are best equipped to actually influence also how we're building those. So for us, it's really important to empower these people to really also consider and take responsibility of their impact. So that's maybe number one, and that requires really them to learn a lot of new things, like legal topics and risk management and so forth. But then, while saying that, it's always collaboration. So really coming back to that collaboration. Legal teams are always involved. Privacy teams very, very often, taking these responsibilities. We briefly discussed about the AI policy, I think. So typically, the owners for AI policies in companies are chief digital officers or similar roles. Those who have really the role of driving the whole AI utilization in a company. So I think it's really natural for them to own also the AI policy and this perspective. That's sort of tied with the opportunity comes with the responsibility. So
yeah, I mean, AI has such great opportunity for organizations to really, not just organizations, just everyone in general, right?
Absolutely.
And when you think about it, it's kind of like GDPR was very successful in putting a data principle or policy in place. So somewhere, does something come like that for the whole of AI? Like how do you mitigate between the good and the bad of AI and the risk and all that? So
Yeah. It's challenging. This is more challenging area to regulate. And when I look at the GDPR and I look at AI Act, AI Act is more complex. GDPR was a monster. This is more complex to really understand and then operationalize. And the complexity comes from the perspective that and what is really good is that the regulators have wanted to regulate it in a way that the requirements are really focused on on the different types of systems based on their risk level.
Yeah.
But that means that you need to, very early in the process, you need to be able to classify your system based on its risk level and then apply the right rules for that. So there is no one set of rules that you can apply everywhere, but you need to first be able to classify your systems, and that makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah. Maybe it's the example of someone's going to do it really well and like lead by example. And it might be large enterprise, it might be some governments or something like that, setting the practical example, maybe possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. And one interesting thing related to AI Act is also that even though it's really focused on, Commission has estimated that it's 5 to 15% of all the AI applications in Europe that are falling into high risk category. But the thing is that before you analyze your portfolio, you don't know whether you fall under it or not. So actually everyone needs to go through that process. Everyone needs to inventory their AI systems, really be able to figure out whether you fall under the requirements or not, and to what extent. So that's causing work for everyone now as a first step.
And back to the emerging ethical challenges, how can organizations that aren't used to this prepare to kind of comply with that or organize themselves to do so?
What we have learned is that piloting is key here as well. So learning by doing. Often first steps is to really figure out, okay, where are the best practices, what we need to do in this area, and put that into an AI policy document. But then when it comes into operationalization practically in your individual AI system context, I really advise that start by picking 3-4 systems and do governance for those.
Yeah. Then
you really start to learn. People start to really learn, what does it mean to do this governance? How do we do this? And a lot of that uncertainty and clarity that influences people's attitudes as well on this are sort of tackled.
I call that the crawl before you walk sort of approach, right? Try something, doesn't work, fail fast, do it again, but at least you're going in the right direction with right intent to make it moving. I think, I mean, that's probably a good question too. Like if you've got the right intent, then typically you probably would get there eventually if you're following examples of other organizations and acts and principles as well.
Yeah, but it can be a turbulent road if you just wait, do what you know and what you want, and then face the consequences. So actually, it's been interesting for us. Maybe I was thinking earlier that regulation is ultimately what drives companies to put in place systematic governance. What we have observed now with the Gen AI boom over the couple last years, it's actually companies' willingness to deploy Gen AI in their companies and the business risks that are involved that puts them to seek for governance. So it's been really interesting to see that actually the compliance regulation is not the primary driver. It's companies' willingness to manage their business risks.
That is fantastic. I think that's probably what it kind of summarizes it all down to. It's business risk. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
But there's also challenges and risks that go with it as well. And it's such a new and emerging market. It's like, we joke about it that September 22 was when Gen AI was born, but really it goes back to the 1980s and, statistical predictive analytics and stuff like that. It's always been around, but now it's got a lot more prevalence in the market.
Yeah. Something that I'm really passionate right now, and when talking about this piloting, is that while putting in place governance, do it that way that you don't sort of need to repeat same things all over again. So find ways to actually reuse what you have done in your earlier cases. There is a lot of reusability in this area. So as an example, we provided AI risk library for our customers, really seeking to to curate, like, provide this expert curated content on, like, different kinds of AI risks and also ways to mitigate. So like, having seen customer pilots where companies have done AI risk management using this kind of pre-existing information, it's quite incredible how much more efficiently you can do risk management. I guess it's something like 60 to 70% more efficient, but not only more efficient or faster, it's also higher quality, because people typically cannot see like that broadly if they don't have this kind of assets in place. So what I'm really excited is how can we make enable companies to really build that knowledge graph on this area, reuse information capabilities that have been invented in this area, and, like, build on existing knowledge and only focus on the stuff that really are context application specifics and get the efficiency through that.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, it's been a highly fascinating conversation, and it's probably the most topical one, because when we talk about AI, governance is just, and ethics and everything is just so important, because you can't leverage the opportunity unless you have proper risk management in place, because we've got to make sure it goes properly. And I think it's really fascinating. So thank you for coming on and having a conversation, Miri. It's been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot out of this, and I'm sure a lot of people will as well. So thank you for your talk today.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you found today's episode interesting and want to hear more about our Make Tomorrows, please subscribe to our channel.